so I had to buy a camera, and it's down here.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to.
You're always trying to.
I'm always trying to.
So you got to start trouble with me on my show on Saturday night. Everybody, we have Dave Kushner in the house. We're live. We're on the air. Dave, are you happy to be here? All right, relax.
So excited to be away from the kids.
Look at the crowd. It's like arena rock. It's all starting now, Dave. Don't touch that dial. Welcome, everybody. You're all beautiful. All thousands and millions and zillions of you are artists on Record Star and ADIKA Live. And tonight, who do I have in the house? We have the lovable, the handsome Dave Kushner over here. You might remember from Velvet Revolver and other stuff, but look at that. Look at that picture, Dave. Look at that.
Right? So young.
You're so young. Look at you over here. You know, this is the first time for anybody watching right now on this podcast. This is the first time you and I we're talking to each other. And but we were introduced, and I got to give a shout out to Club Soda Kenny.
Yeah, Club Soda.
Yeah, he's the one who hooked us up. He's a good guy, Club Soda.
I love that guy, dude.
He's very serious. He goes, I'm a business man.
Yeah. I was really super intimidated by him when I first met him, which, I mean, you can understand why, but I remember it was like, you know, like when you're a kid and you go to a party or something and you're trying to get like the one person that's ignoring you to like you, you know, it was like that, like, hey, kitty, hey, I'm cool too, you know.
Well, you know, I'll tell you how I met Kenny and all that, but I was like that when I met you. Do you know? Okay, this is my Kushner stalking moments I had. Okay. I was working out at Crunch.
Yeah.
And I saw you there one time. And this is when Velvet Revolver first had the first record out. You guys had your first record out. And I have a picture of the record somewhere. I think I might have a picture. But
hey, I have one.
Do you have it? You have it on vinyl?
Dude, check it out. Look at this.
Oh, whoa, look at this.
Right? Look, double album.
Oh, hold it up. We're a vinyl show. Let's show that. Wow.
And it's a double album, and it comes with a CD.
Is that the first pressing?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool, Dave.
This got another one on the other side. Where is it? Right here. Dude, it's weird. It's only like 3 songs. It's got like 3 songs aside. Where is it?
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at this, Debbie, because I love Velvet Revolver. I have to have that. What songs are on that album?
You've got your Slither, you've got your Fall to Pieces. It's just all the first record. There's no extra stuff on here.
Wow, what a great album that is.
It's not for sale.
Oh, that's cool.
Not for sale.
That's cool. That's like, you know what, man? That's almost. I used to have the original Appetite for Destruction.
Ooh. With
the sticker in it. The decal. I don't know what I did with it. That's worth money, huh? That record. The girl, right?
Yeah. Well, because they stopped pressing that one, the one with the girl, the Robert Williams painting, and then they put the cross on there.
Yeah, they put the cross later on, which you know, I remember when it first came out because I was working at Circus Magazine at the time. I was an errand boy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The office was on 18th between 5th and 6th, and I'd run and get tickets and come, you know. And then my roommate was the managing editor, Ben Lemer. It was the best job. I'm 54 now, so back then I was like 21. It was a great time. I'd walk uptown to Central Park to 18th Street in cowboy boots and leather pants. I don't know what the hell I was doing.
Oh, you knew what you were doing.
I knew I was doing. I had the hair. I looked like I had the poodle hair, you know.
Yeah.
You know, with the leather, it was so uncomfortable. Now it's like
it's so hot.
In August in New York City in leather pants, it doesn't work.
You know what's the funny thing about that is like, so my daughter's birthday, it was this week, and she has a bunch of friends over, you know, sleeping over tonight. So we all just went to the mall and we did this like we call it a scavenger hunt, right? And so all these girls are running around. So basically, it's Friday or Saturday night. And me and my wife are there, waiting for the girls and just looking around the mall and seeing like those, not that look, but looks, you know what I mean? Like just really like this really hardcore Hot Topic look, or, and these people are like going for it with makeup, and it's crazy. Patent leather skirts and high boots, and that's a mall.
But it looks odd now, right? Does it look odd?
You look at it like Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop, when he sees the guys in the jackets and he's just like, whoa. You're kind of laughing.
It just doesn't look. Yeah, it looks odd now. But back in our day, it was like you wouldn't be caught because you're from Hollywood. You grew up in Hollywood. I grew up in Brooklyn. Two different sides. You went to Fairfax, right? Fairfax High.
I did.
Steven Adler and Slash and those guys.
Yeah. They had They used to. Fairfax was great because they had this like little. It's not an amphitheater really, but it was kind of a little step up concrete, almost like an amphitheater, but in the quad, and they would let bands play. So like Slash's band, he had this trio called Titus Sloan, and like Tracy Guns went there. So he had, I forget his band's name, and like all these bands would play like at lunchtime. It was awesome.
Wow. So Tracy had like Steven Adler would always tell me he had stringy blonde hair.
Yeah.
I was in LA Guns for a short time.
You were?
I was. Yeah. I was like the 100th bass player. Oh, it's like, everybody watching out there, thank you for being in the chat and share this out with your friends. Let's get it out, the word on the street. Really quick. This is the first time we're talking, but here's a true story. Dave and I almost playing the band. He doesn't even know it. There was a moment when I was playing with Dee Dee and Duff had loaded, and I was talking to you on the phone about this, and Duff, I think he went to Seattle and he was just finished school. Then he was coming back into LA, and he was living somewhere by Fairfax, down by the Grove over there. He was renting a place. He just moved back. You could tell I'm not lying because I know the stories. I mean, Duff will see me now. He won't. Who's this guy? But no, true story. And I remember him and I got McBob was sidelining because I was playing on other gigs, and McBob would be teching. And McBob goes, "Listen, Maggot, you'll be great. You'll be great in this band, Maggot. I'm gonna put the words." So he gave me the cassette loaded, and I learned all the songs, so I knew it already. So I was like cocky. Then Duff comes to my house with the cassette, with the CD of Loaded. I act like I didn't know it. He was calling, he was friendly, but then me and my Jewish stupid mouth, I could have been a contender. I could have been in Loaded with you. I priced myself too much. $200 a week. And that was the end of that relationship. Duff never called me. But Duff, if you are watching and you're stalking me, I'm sorry. I'm a good guy.
Yeah, you are. I can vouch for you. Anyone that knows Kenny.
Anybody knows
Kenny. Because McBob is like kind of the same type of dude. Like you want his approval. He works for you, but you want his approval. I remember I was telling this story yesterday because I did this podcast. But they were filming it and they were here in my studio, and I had they were going through my guitars, and I had my own signature model when I was in Velvet Revolver. And I remember I was talking about it had regular pickups, and then I put EMGs in it where you need like a battery, and and McBob was like, "Oh Christ. Oh Jesus Christ, Dave. What the hell is this? You need a fucking battery in here? God damn it. Why don't you just use regular pickups?" He's all mad.
He was all mad. I mean, he's actually a big thing behind Duff's bass, his stuff, his tone and everything. McBob is the guy that gets stuff done. He's one of the greatest. He's also the guy that announces all the shows. That's crazy. I don't know if people know that, but like he's the guy that goes, he used to do it for Velvet Revolver too, but he does it for Guns N' Roses like before and after Velvet Revolver. Wow. But when they're about to come out, he used to say to us, he'd say like, "Cleveland, you wanted the best, but they couldn't make it. So here's what you get from Hollywood, Velvet Revolver." He has like 10 of them that he just like recycles on different nights. That's right. Over here, AH is going. I noticed Duff and Stefan have similar hanging bass. You know what? The running joke was they'd call me Discount Duff, and that McBob made that name up for me, and that's a true story. But you know what? It was an honor for him to even consider jamming me, Duff, and it was because I was playing with Dee Dee at the time, and Jeff Redding, he came to the last Dee Dee Ramone show at the El Rey Theater. It was me, Slim Jim, and Dee Dee playing. Dee Dee passed away a couple of days later. And he goes, "Oh, I got to get you in the band with us." Because, I guess they were the bass player, the guy is a great bass player that's in Duff's band. Jeff. Yeah. And his band is a great band. But anyway, that was a long time ago, man. That's like, I got to be like 20 plus years. So then when Velvet Revolver later on came out, I remember bumping in the mat in the street. Because, yeah, man, we just kind of this deal.
Man.
Hey man, I should just be I just stand up. The hell with all this
voiceover actor,
but
you got the whole setup for it.
I'm professional, but man, it was a great time. And that first record, let's go talk. It's your story, because before that you're in Electric Love House. You're doing the whole LA scene. You went to school with those guys. Let's go back a little bit now. You knew the Cats. You went to school with those guys, with Steven, with Slash, and everybody in Fairfax. What a crazy scene. But what were you doing before Velvet? What were you doing?
I mean, it's a long story, but I'll try and make it short. Basically, I was just, I was one of those guys that was just, I drank a lot and, did a lot of drugs in high school and was just a mess and wasn't going to school by the time I was in 11th grade, and just ditching school all the time. And my mom, I was like, oh, I'm not going to go to college. So can I just go to MI, Musicians Institute? And she just kind of had it. And it was cheap back then. It was like $3,500. And she was like, just, if you pass the GED, you can go. So I did it. I passed. Me, Slash, like everyone in that, that was a musician that went to that school all took a GED to get out of going to school. And, I went to music school. Eventually I forget how I got in, I ended up in this punk band, Wasted Youth, when it was kind of, when the whole crossover thing started happening with like metal and punk, like DRI and all those bands, when it started getting a little more metal, but it was all these punk bands. So I did that, which is where I met Joey Castillo, the drummer from Queens of the Stone Age, and now he plays in the Bronx and Circle Jerks. But he and I have been really close ever since, and we kind of like have helped each other, along the way. And so there was a lot of like, then I got into Electric Love Hogs, with through those guys, and then that was the first like real record deal where you could actually quit your job and do that. And it was great, but again, it was like, we did it for 9 months. I quit. And then you know the story, then you move on and then you got to get your,
what year was Electric Love Hogs? Cause I remember when it came in, I think I was still working at Circus Magazine.
It was 1990.
That's right. It's right before I moved to California, 1990.
Or maybe it came out in 92, the record actually, but yeah, around then. But yeah, that's when I worked at Tower Video with, when I met Ryan Roxy, because he worked at Oz at the end of the street, and I'd see him and I'd see Gilby and Slash and Axel work there right before I did. Yeah. They worked there, and then GNR got their record deal, and then they quit, and then I worked there, and then like the singer from this band Sugartooth worked there, the singer from, what was this? His name's Bert. Oh, Fear Factory, that metal band.
I remember them, yeah.
Bert used to work there before Fear Factory. So, and actually, funny story, the girl that wrote that movie, Empire Records, she worked there, and she wrote it about that, that time she worked there for 6 months. And so that was about Tower Video.
Is that the movie with Coyote Shivers in that movie? I think Empire Records.
I think so. With what's her name? Steven Tyler's daughter's in it.
Yes. Liv Tyler.
Yeah. So yeah, dude, it was, it was great. It was like when I was in Love Hogs, it was like, it was Hollywood. It was 1990 to 1993. So it was that period when, we were all playing in these small clubs, but it was Rage Against the Machine and, Smashing Pumpkins. Not that they were from there, but you would see them, on a Wednesday night at the same club you just played with Tool and Rage and Stone Temple Pilots. And so everyone knew each other.
The Teaser.
Yeah, the Teaser. And English Acid and Down on Santa Monica. And so everyone in that scene knew each other and, still is friendly with each other for the most part. Like I'm still, talk to Tom and Brad Wilk and Mark McGrath when, Sugar Ray was there too. And, and it's like now that you're older, when you have kids in school, you always ask these guys for favors like, hey, will you play my kid's school thing? I gotta do this benefit for my kid's school. Do you mind? And, Mark's the guy that is the best because he almost never says no.
Really?
He'll like Kiss songs and he'll do Fly and he's great. He lives right down the street from me.
That's great. So he's all into it. That's cool. I did it one time. I did it with me and Dizzy Reed, and I think it was I forget who it was. It was with Eric Dover. We did one for my kid in Burbank, and we did for the kids. We're playing, thinking, and these little like first graders are looking at us at the time, like, it's cute. We made these little laminates. It was fun. They had no clue, Dizzy Reed's over there, hey, singing, Heartbreaker by the Stones.
We did that's how I actually got into the school that my kids went to elementary school at, because I had done that with Donovan, Donovan Leach, whose dad
Nancy Boy, he used to have that band.
Yeah. With
Nigel from the Choir Boys.
Yeah, and Jason Nesmith. Who I just had lunch with 2 weeks ago because he went to Fairfax also.
Oh, Jason did?
Yeah, Jason Nesmith was a grade underneath me. And he said, oh, dude, you got to see this.
Jason's great. He was in Kill for Thrills with Gilby. Really nice guy, Jason.
I fucking love Jason. Oh, can I not?
You could trust me. You could do whatever you want,
I got to show you this really funny picture. I'll find it really quick. I'll just keep saying words.
Jason, great guitar player too.
Dude, he's a insane composer.
Is he
now?
Really?
Yeah, he wrote like the theme song for Extra and Ellen and
wow.
Oh yeah, he's done really well as a dude. This is the yearbook from our middle school.
Let me make this big for a second. Show this right there. Let's see.
This is Jason.
Oh wow.
That's Jason Nesmith.
That's him, yeah.
And this is me. Wait.
Oh wow, look at you. Wow. Oh, that's so cool. How old are you right there?
9th grade, dude. So
wow.
Know,
that's killer. 13,
14. But yeah, anyways, I'm all over the place, but
I am too. Don't worry. We'll get along good now. We're all over. Don't worry about it. And the people here enjoying the conversation, I was gonna bust your chops. I go to my wife. I'm gonna go. Would he treat Eddie Trunk this way? He's coming on the interview, and then I'm like making a joke because I'm like in my head. I'm like, thank God he's late. I wanted to get a workout because I had to run with the family and do some stuff. So I'm trying. And then I had Dice Clay call me on the phone talking to me. That's how I know Club Soda Kenny, because of Dice. They introduced me. Dice introduced me to Club Soda, and that's how I got you. But for the people watching this, I shared the stage with you, and it was with a friend of mine, John Mayo. I always say his name wrong. He's a good friend of mine. I'm the worst. We did a thing at the Canyon Club where a police officer got hurt on a motorcycle accident. And our band, the Starfuckers at the time, we opened up for you guys, and we used your back line. I remember Duff let me use his bass gear, and it was C.C. DeVille played with us. It was Terry Nunn from Berlin was there. I'll never forget. Kanicki, Jeff Conway. He was there, and he wanted to jam with us, but I think he was wasted. And I think Pamela Anderson. It was great, and you guys played. Yeah, I remember it was such a fun time, and so there was moments that we were in the same room together, but we didn't talk.
Yeah, I think it was because of Brian Tichy that made that whole connection because I remember he was friends with John Mayo.
That's right.
And I remember, it's so funny, I forgot it was him, but I became friendly with him, and I forget why.
With John, because John worked for DW because his best friend owned it.
Yeah, but he was also a LA County sheriff.
Well, he is now.
Yeah, but he was at the time. So, but he also did stuff for DW. He was like kind of all over the place. But I remember I met him because he worked at the division in Van Nuys, which is close to where I live. So we were just bullshitting, and he's like, "Oh, why don't you come have lunch?" So I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool." So I drive down there. It's like 10, 15 minutes from my house. I drive down, and he's like, "Well, just come in." And dude, it was like the bowels of the holding cells where they hold dudes that are like either coming to go to their court dates or after they go to their court dates. And it's like crazy, dude. He would walk by and he'd be like, "Yeah, we got to separate them by, whatever, and it's like, there's all the crazy people and there's all the, you would like separate them by race because otherwise they would fight. And it was nuts, dude. Like there was this crazy guy in a thing because only the windows are like this big, right? You see people like looking out, and he's like, "Yeah, check it out." And I was like, "No, dude, I'm not gonna put my face up to the thing and look at like a bunch of dudes." And he would like hit it with like a billy club, and then the dude was like, "Ah!" Like,
I would call John up because TMZ. I remember one of the Beverly Hills Housewives got arrested on the one that was on Witch Mountain, the actress Kim Richards.
Yeah.
And she was one day, and I go, "John," I go, "What has she in there?" He goes, "Yeah, she's in there right now." I go, "Wow." I go, "What do you do? Give her a peanut butter sandwich?" And we'd laugh. And then there was times I went there because we go to see Kiss, so we go. I go. He goes, "Meet me here," and we'll leave from the station. I leave my car and we drive. He's switching, and I'd hear him yell, "Shut up!" What is this? Just what you experienced, but
it's nuts, dude.
Yeah, I texted him today.
So real, you're just like, because you live like your regular life, and you're like, "Oh yeah, it's cool. Oh, dude, this is hard. Hey, what are you looking at?" And then when you go in there, dude, it's like, "Oh shit, this is like fucking another level."
It's like on stage we're being like these bad boys on rock and roll. You're wearing, you're up there with Velvet Revolver, playing, guitar. You got the Danger front man, but then there's the real stuff right there. You're like, oh man, all the tattoos. It's like, oh no way, man. So you guys, you guys got that. You're playing with all the local bands. You did the whole scene, the Coconut Teaser, Club Lingerie, all those places, Dale Gloria's places. It was a scene.
Yeah.
And that was a scene that was starting to end around that time. It was a weird scene.
Yeah. But I know the cool thing was like when I was in Wasted Youth, we were more, there was a lot of, it was kind of the whole crossing over where Jane's Addiction would play, at Scream, with Dale's people. And like, there was all these kind of, it was a really cool time though, because it's like Guns N' Roses could play with, Tex and the Horseheads at this punk club, or Jane's Addiction and this band and GNR could play together. And it was just cool that it seemed less, there was like the Sunset Strip bands, with the Hair and the Poisons and all that stuff. But then there was this whole kind of melting pot of like, I guess what came to be, real alternative, for lack of a better term. But it was like, it's kind of punk, it's kind of, rock, it's kind of The Cure, it's like all these things mixed together. And it was cool to see all these bands at little clubs that, eventually became that kind of K-rock, thing.
But it was a fun time. Then you had the Virgin store that they put up there. It was cool. That was a great place to go, and I'd get lost in that place.
Yeah, you go in the little listening booth and you put the headphones on. And
I mean, okay, so now you're doing that, and then right before, so you were jamming with Duff's band Loaded, but pre-Velvet Revolver, right? You were jamming with him, helping them a little bit because one guy was left. So you're like the utility guy, basically. You're like, oh yeah, I'll come and play a little bit, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I had done this gig in Japan, and that's where I met Duff. because he and I didn't know each other. I knew Slash forever. I even knew Matt before, but I
Wait,
never.
you did the Japan with Loaded in Japan?
No, this was some other band with Joey Castillo and just this kind of group of American, and it's a long story, but American. It was called Zilch, and it was this dude Hide that was in this band X Japan that was really big and like the biggest rock band in Japan. Anyway, it's a complicated story, but I was in Japan and I met Duff and we became friends just because we were like two guys that weren't drinking, you know, at the time, and we were playing this show and we just got along. And you know, obviously, like you know, we knew a lot of the same people and we started telling stories and all this stuff. And it was funny because Duff and I at first just became friends because we just got along and had nothing to do with music. You know, like he was going between LA and Seattle, you know, and we would just like, I mean, it sounds so goofy, but it was like we would go to the movies together. You know, we would just like go to eat and, you know, or we would go hang out and he'd be like, dude, because he's an avid reader, you know, and he would say, oh, there's this movie coming out called Black Hawk Down, and I read the book and it's really amazing and we should go check out the movie. I heard it's pretty good. And then we go to the movies. And so we became friends that way. And then the two guys that were in Loaded left. And I think that's when he was talking to you. And then he, you know, since we were hanging out all the time, he's like, hey, you want to play, you know, Loaded, and we'll play some gigs and it'll be fun. And so I did that for a while. And really what happened was I had just gotten Logic, you know, like Pro Tools, like Logic. And I had this computer and I was writing all these songs by myself, you know, like with a drum machine and playing guitar and bass. And I had met Mikey Fitz from Fitz in the Tantrums because he played at the Viper Room. I started writing. I was like, dude, you're awesome. And he's like, oh, thanks. And I said, you want to sing on these things? He was like, yeah, cool. And so we wrote a handful of songs. Duff heard them. Duff loved them. Duff's like, let's start a band. So it was me, Mikey Fitz, Duff, and again, Joey from Queens.
Oh, wow. And
we were recording these songs at Rumbo where they did the GNR record. And thanks, Debbie. And dude, so Velvet Revolver was, you know, there was this benefit for Randy Castillo, right? The drummer from Ozzy.
I remembered it, yeah.
And I was with Duff in this diner called Swingers. And I remember Matt used to live around the corner, Sorm. And Matt Sorm, just total coincidence, dude. Me and Duff are in there eating lunch. Matt comes in. He's like, hey, man, you know, Randy Castillo died. And, you know, we're going to throw this benefit for him. And, you know, we're going to, you know, we should jam and we'll blah, 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 blah. And, you know, and Duff's like, okay, cool. He wasn't talking to me. He was talking to Duff. And, dude, so that's the first time that Duff, Slash, and Matt had played together in a long time. And they played with Josh and Keith from Buck Cherry.
Okay.
And so, and at the same time, me and Duff are in the studio making this, you know, recording these songs with Fitz. And so I'm like, you know, I'm thinking like, oh, this is going to be so cool. Like, you know, you're in a band and like, you know, we got these cool songs. And dude, and then like a week later, Duff calls me. He's like, oh, dude, you know what? I got some bad news. Like, I really got to see this thing through with Slash and Matt and kind of check it out because it's kind of a vibe and we haven't played together in so long and it feels really good. And so, you know, I don't think I'm going to have time to do that thing. And I was like, so bummed, so crushed.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
And that was it, man. And then, but I was still talking to him all the time. And, you know, like a month later, he's like, oh, I think we're going to, you know, part ways with Josh, you know, Todd from Buck Cherry, the singer. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And he's like, yeah, and I don't know about, I'm not sure about, someone's knocking. Hold on one second.
That's okay. Take your time. Intermission. This is good. See, everybody, thank you for being. Let me see who's over here. Oh, no, don't worry, Debbie. He's coming back. Steve is here. Good to see you. Steve, Brian, H, good to see you. Randy Castillo was loved here in New Mexico. Good to see. Keep the comments. Any questions? I'll pop them up here. Good to see you guys all here. Flavia, good to see you as well. Say hello to everybody there. Laura G, good to see you too. All right, let's get back. I said hello to you guys. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Dude, my wife's like, where are the towels? The girls are in the pool. One of them just came in the house and everything's soaking wet.
God, I couldn't
the towels are on the thing.
I can't handle it. I'll tell you my problems later. I'm like a neat freak, so I can't handle it. And I have older kids, but and now we have a 6-year-old, so I'm a nutcase. But okay, let's go back. So now
So
now we go. We're at the part.
So Duff's calling me. He's like, oh, I think we're gonna get rid of Keith too, because it just doesn't feel right. I'm like, okay, cool. And he's like, you should learn these songs. They had recorded like 8 songs. He's like, you should learn these songs, and then you come down like next week. I said, okay, cool. And then the next day he calls me and he says, dude, I couldn't take it anymore. I fired Keith, and or I told him he was done, and now you should come down tomorrow. So I had like a day to learn these songs. I'm freaking out.
How many songs did they throw at you?
8.
8 songs.
Plus a couple GNR songs. They're like, why don't you learn a couple of just a jam? And I was like, okay. And so, the bottom line is I just went down. I brought my little pedal board. I had my thing that I did, and it worked. And at the end of it, I was about to. I like went down to like get my pedal board and put it back, in the case and leave. And they're like, no, just leave your pedal board. Why don't you come back tomorrow? I was like, okay. And dude, for months, it was never like you're in the band. It just was like, all right, well, we're gonna do it tomorrow again. Okay, cool. And then we did it. I think it was like 6 months of playing 5 days a week before, it was really like you're in the band. Even though there wasn't really a band, that was a weird thing.
But those guys, you guys, Velvet Revolver, they were workhorses. Like just before Scott Weiland, but just you guys as a band writing the music, they were just. You could see why Guns N' Roses, their work ethic, basically.
Yeah, oh yeah, dude. And I learned a lot from Duff and Slash as far as, work ethics and integrity. As far as like, at that point they said we're basically have this room locked out, and we're gonna rehearse here from 2 to 6 Monday through Friday from here on out.
Which you guys are at Mates.
Yeah, and we wrote like 60 songs in 10 months. We had this big dry erase board, and McBob was there. We'd come up with these stupid names for the songs because none of them have vocals, so we just come up with these dumb names. And then we started looking for singers.
How was the writing when those guys write, as a group, because Slash, as he's the riff guy, and back in the day when Guns N' Roses, you always heard Izzy would try, with his Stonesy, the way he wrote, and then you had Slash because it was such a crazy mix. When you got when you think about the formula of Guns N' Roses, you got the punk, you got the rock and roll, then you got the hard rock stuff like the UFO, the Michael Schenk, all that stuff. But how were you guys writing it? Who would come with the main riffs, or was it through jams? Yeah,
like I said, we were there 5 days a week, dude, for 10 months, and sometimes it would be, someone coming in with a riff. When Slash came in, he came in with like Fall to Pieces, like he had that and then we would just start playing it, and then someone would go to another part and would be like, nah. But usually it was pretty kind of like that. Like it really just someone naturally felt like, oh, I'm going to go to this part, and it would work. And then we would record it live and, just kind of document it. Sometimes we'd come back to rework that song more or, but it was really all over the place. I remember that first single, Set Me Free, before Slither, that we did for the Hulk soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
I remember because in the room in Mates, we weren't in the big room, right? We were, because Mates, we're in one of the smaller rooms, and there's just basically it's just a room there's no stage, and there's a couch. And so you'd be sitting on the couch like this, you know, and I remember me and Duff and Slash were all sitting on the couch like this, and Matt's like, hey man, I got this thing. And he just like grabbed Duff's bass and he's standing in front of us like this. Hey man, check this out. And he's like, and he started playing the riff and he's like, you know, on bass. And we were like, oh, okay. You know, and that became Set Me Free, you know, or
it's funny.
Or I would come in with, you know, I wrote this song that I ended up using later for this other project, but you know, like I brought in a song and I would just bring in riffs and everyone would just either bring in a riff or, you know, a part or, you know, maybe like even when we did the second record and I did like I had that song Get Out the Door, I had recorded it. I demoed like the whole thing, you know, in my room. You know, I was like played guitar and programmed drum machine, and then I brought that in like almost like a finished song. And, you know, so it was all over the place, but it was really, you know, it was a little intimidating though, because when Duff and Slash write, they have a tendency, like everyone's standing here, you know, in the room, drummer's here and it's like Slash and me and Duff. But when Slash would start with a riff, they would kind of slowly go like this to Matt. So it's like I'd be the guy like on the outside, like, hey, what are you playing over there? You know, how does that go? You know,
yeah.
Naturally, like kind of just play with Matt because that's how they always wrote, and I would be kind of like, you know, the little kid like trying to look over the fence, like
to see the hands, what position are you hitting the G?
And it was funny because they played together for so long, dude. Matt and Duff and Slash really would like pick up things quickly from each other. That's and funny. I'm like way more like you know, I'm like Salieri in Amadeus. Like Amadeus is the guy that writes shit in his head and everything's easy. And I'm like, you know, Salieri where I'm like, wait, what? And then I gotta play it like, you know, for a fucking half hour before it feels comfortable. And so, you know, it was you know, I would talk to other buddies of mine, you know, that I had these two buddies, Scott and Brian, that had gotten we'd all used to go to Johnny Rockets and none of us had a gig and we'd all just hang out and, you know, bullshit and eat. And then Brian got the Paul McCartney gig, Brian Ray,
yeah.
And then Scott, who was the best man at my wedding, got the Weezer gig. He plays bass in Weezer. And then I got in Velvet Revolver, and we would all like talk to each other, you know.
Yeah.
Slash didn't talk to me today, and I think maybe I'm gonna get fired. Or I don't
so
know.
Stressful because you want this to work.
Yeah.
You want it to work.
Especially, you know, dude. Especially if you haven't had that thing before, like, and also there's something psychologically in your head where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know, always like you know, especially. Yeah. And I know up until that point, I mean, I was 35 when that happened, and it was just always like you'd get so close, and then it's like something would happen, like someone dies, or the record guy who signed you goes to another record company, and now they don't want anything to do with your record. Or,
and it's so because you know. When I was doing the Dee Dee gig, I thought everything was great. We were going to do a record together. We were going to write together. I'm here with the guy who started the Ramones, who wrote most of the songs, came up with the name. When everybody wanted to be my friend. Everybody. When he died, all I had was the Cat Club gig with Slim Jim, and I had nothing. I was like, the phone stopped ringing. I all the gigs, and I was like, oh, that felt the flame. So a gig like you're in, you know, especially you want to be creative. You go, hey. Am I giving them too many ideas? Am I annoying them? Am I you know, you don't want to, you know what I mean?
You're constantly second guessing yourself, you know, like, is this, do I wear the right shirt? No, not that bad. But, you know, like you're really like, it's stressful, man. And you know, the worst was after about 3 months, and mind you, this whole time we're looking for singers, right? We would try it. Sometimes a guy would come down, like, or sometimes we would go, like I remember we went and met with Sebastian Bach, and he was doing Jesus Christ Superstar, the musical, like a small version of it. And we went and saw him, and I'd never met him, and me and Duff went to dinner with him, and he's just like, you know how he is, and it's like he's always like that. He's always on. He's always like, hey man, yeah,
like a little kid, hyper.
Yeah, and so, and then we recorded a couple songs with him, and we were like, oh, this is cool. But then we were like, is it? Like, I don't know. And that's the thing I was going to say about, when I say I learned a certain amount of kind of integrity, I saw an example of a certain kind of integrity with Duff and Slash, where even though they were paying for that room, because we didn't have a deal or anything. So those guys were paying for this out of pocket for 10 months, and they just never settled. They were never, there was times where, after 6 months, dude, we were getting frustrated, and there was a couple guys that were close, and we're like, maybe we should just, in my mind, I'm like, let's just get a guy and let's go.
But you're not working. You didn't.
I worked at me.
That's right. That's what I want to show the audience. It's not like you're coming from a big record deal from the bands you were in. You got your deals, and they were you were not in the Guns N' Roses before, so you got nothing really to hold you over. But you need to get a job at the same time working with these guys. But you don't want to lose the spot here. God, this could be my ticket to something really good, but you don't know. You're at the table gambling. So Bobby, who's if you see this, Bobby's a great guy from Mates, but he helped you out, huh?
Yeah, Bobby was like, I remember because I would talk to Bobby. I'd known him for years, and he's like, he's like, you can talk to him about anything, and I would say like, dude, like kind of behind the scenes, like, dude, I don't know what I'm gonna do though, because like, I got no money. I had like $200 in the bank. I'm like, I used to do, and then he's like, well, why don't you come work for me? You can work in the morning, because Jimmy, that was doing all the cartage, was doing a build out for the storage place, and then he had room for cartage. So he's like, you come here at, I don't know, 8 in the morning and do cartage till 1:30, and then you can go to rehearsal. And I was like, all right, I'll fucking do it.
Yeah.
And it was great. I mean, I was making $13 an hour, and it was really humbling because a lot of the dudes that I was doing cartage for were guys I had played with. It was like I was doing the first gig, dude, I had to do was for Queens of the Stone Age. So it was like, Troy and Joey, this guy had been in like 5 bands with, and I'm like, oh, where do you want? Yeah, pushing, light cases, and and I'm just, it was humbling, and then I'd get off work, and then I'd just be there already, and I'd rehearse, or McBob and all the techs like Adam Day and those guys were
Adam
like,
Day, yeah,
we're doing a truck dump, tonight at 6 o'clock, if you want $60 cash. I'm like, oh yeah, all right, cool.
So you be playing with the guys, Rockstar, and then I'll put it up. Okay, let's do the dump. Come on, move it over there, maggot.
Yeah, totally.
like that.
Yeah,
that is fun. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so much so that the funny thing, because I've always had that kind of working man mentality.
Yeah.
And I remember in Velvet Revolver, when we first started going on tour, and I would my tendency is, the way my brain's wired, is to still help push crates around after the gig.
Yeah.
Because I would be backstage, and I'd see McBob and Adam like pushing crates, and I had pushed a lot of flight cases with those guys. And I think it was either McBob or his brother Tom, who sounds
just like him, yeah.
And Tom was our production guy. It was Tom, and because Tom would do the truck dumps too, and I was pushing this crate. He's like, "Oh no, back up, little fighter. You're on the other team now. You don't want to hurt the money makers. Go play with your little band guys now." I was like,
funny. That's funny. So you stepped up. Yeah, no, I get it, man. Because you feel guilty. You're like, you don't feel like I'm not to hang out with this crew. And it's like a weird thing. How many singers did you guys go through with Velvet Revolver? I mean, look for, on the search. Because while you were doing that, there was a documentary being made too.
Yeah.
So while you're learning the songs, jamming, writing with them, you're painting in a paint suit, which we were talking about. You're doing
Yeah.
like the work around the studio, hammering, sweating, and then you're like, all right. And Duff probably said, God, you're great. You're the first one here all the time. We love you.
Yeah, totally, dude. Well, he knew, they all knew, like, I was fucking working there. And yeah, it was I don't know. It was crazy. Singers. I mean, dude, if you watch the documentary, it's like at one point, like, we kind of looked on our own, like, hey, do you know a guy? Yeah. Oh, what about this guy? What about that guy? And it just none of them worked. And at one point, like, because we had all those songs, we recorded like 3 songs, and we were like, oh, these 3 songs are cool. They're kind of a vibe. They fit with each other. So we would, if we heard someone and we knew like they might, work, like Jimmy, Jimmy from Hours, Jimmy Necco.
I remember, Jimmy, great guy. That's a great picture of you guys. Yeah, Jimmy, yeah, definitely.
So like Jimmy was one of those guys where, we Duff and I went and saw. He did a solo thing at the Viper Room. We were like, this guy's fucking incredible. He's like Jeff Buckley,
Yeah, he was supposed to be the next big thing, which great guy,
Yeah. And so we were like, we'd give him 3 songs, and then he would sing on it, and then we'd get him back, and we'd be like, oh, this is cool. Let's set up a, time to play with him. So it was like that for a few months, and then, but then we couldn't find anyone. And then at one point they announced it on KLOS, which is like the rock station in LA. And they're like, they're looking for, these 4 guys / got some guys together, and, and they had a PO box, and we would get these boxes full of fucking submissions. Like,
wow.
McBob would go and he would bring like 2 boxes a week. And there was like, probably 100 a week, and we would
how could you listen to them all? How could you?
They see it in the documentary. We like all sit in a row, and there was a mobile, Slash had this thing with like a CD player and some other player and a power amp and 2 speakers. And he would just set it up, and that's what we would record the demos on when we would record live. And one of us would take the thing out of take the package out and open it and hand the CD to one guy, and then the other guy would get like the story, or like a picture, and be like, my name is so-and-so, and I live in blah, blah, blah. Or sometimes they send videos, and we'd sit, and sometimes we didn't even play, for 4 hours. We'd just be going through people and just be like, oh my God, so bad. And then we found a guy, and we found a couple people that way. And, then we all vote like on who has to be the one that goes and tells them, thank you. That tells them like, you're not the guy, like, oh dude, I did it last time. And be like, oh, okay. Hey man, how's it going? And so, and then it just kept going, dude, for months. And eventually we got Scott. Well, we were working with these 2 managers.
Yeah.
And they so young. And they said, hey, we heard Scott's out of STP, and Duff's wife was friends with Mary, who was Scott's wife at the time. And they ended up hanging out and talking, and kind of floating the idea. And actually I used to work out at Crunch where you saw me, and so did Scott. So I would see Scott, and I knew him from way back in the day, and I remember giving him a demo, at Crunch, the locker room. I'm like, dude, here's the demo, blah blah blah. He was like, okay, cool. And then he sang, dude, the first song he sent back was that song "Set Me Free" that I was saying, that Matt wrote on the bass. And
Matt got him.
Yeah. Hey man.
Hey man, he was all dressed up, Matt, probably all Gucci out. Hey man. Like, little, hey,
and
man.
And he dude, and it was like, this is the guy, like, it was just, he's the whole package,
Yeah.
And we just we're like, okay, let's fucking do it.
I mean, great. I mean, so that's when it got complete. Right when you heard. I mean, great,
Yeah.
great frontman, Scott. You know, I used to see Stone Temple Pilots because I was in a local band, the Comatones, and we play the Coconut Teaser all the time.
Yeah,
I had a choice of between them and there's another band, the Hangman, which was another great Los
yeah,
Angeles
Brian.
band. Brian, you know Brian Small.
Yeah.
He wanted me in there, and I ended up joining the Comatones. You know, they had two great local bands, and Stone Temple Pilots always used to play. They were just, you know, one of Len Fagan's favorite bands, and who's another great guy. But Scott, just Velvet Revolver really was that record that it was so good. All the songs were great, and the energy was good. And Scott, and right here's a great photograph of you guys right here.
Yeah.
Look, guys, look at Matt. There's Matt. Hey, man, you know, but look how cool. Look, you know.
Hey, man.
It's great.
There's stuff, and there's Slash, and there's Scott Weiland, and who's that other guy? You know, like you know, with the is that good? He must work for them.
Well, they might have. Well, you know what? You have the Circus of Power vibe over there too. That's what was cool. Another great band. That first record, Motor. What a great record it was. That whole New York scene. That was a great band.
Ricky Mahler.
I'm good friends with Ricky. Calls me all the time and sends me a crazy text.
Dude, always.
What is
that about? Because it's like I get these texts. I don't hear from Ricky for a fucking 9 months, and then I get this text, and I'm like,
oh my god! He goes, yo, kid. It's like, and it's all like the world is doomed, and it's like this. I'm like, oh boy. It's like I go, oh, there's another Ricky. Then he goes,
go ahead.
No, it's just
it's so out there, but you don't know like if it. Because at first you're like, oh wait, is he like falling down like a QAnon rabbit hole? And you're like, no, it's not really. It's not really either one. It's just like this weird like.
Dave, I know Ricky because when New York City, I was friends with Ricky. So when Circus of Power got there on RCA, they got the deal. I was really good friends, and I actually they were on tour. You know. Back in the early days, and was it with Mother Love Bone? They did some crazy tour, but anyway, every song was great. Alex, all of them, but Ricky was a really good friend of mine. And for guys out there watching, Circus of Power's first record, check it out if you haven't. It was to mass. Every song was great, but Ricky, he became selling all the guitars and all that stuff, and he's insane. He's a great guy. But you always had that vibe. So now you got the band together. Me and you we're like the same people. We go up one way. I'll edit this. My wife is like, stay on track. I know when she's naked, you know. But it's fun talking to somebody who you connect with, you know, like this. And that's where a lot of guys like us got our gigs. It was all connecting. If you connect, you know, it wasn't the best bass player. It was like the connection, and then you know, you get together. So you got Scott. He fits in. Great front man. I mean, come on. He was cool. You guys were all now. Was the band all working out? Because you guys were all work. Did you all go to Crunch?
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. We were all like, we all worked out. You know, we all like watched what we ate. And all.
Yeah. Oh, you did what? You did, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you know, dude, it's funny because right before I started playing in Loaded, I was hanging out with Dave Navarro a lot because I'd known him for a while. And then he did a solo record, and I was like the MD for his band, you know, for that record. And so he and I were really good friends, and still are. But we, you know, he's so fucking health conscious, and you know, so I would just be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna, you know, I want to stay in shape too. So it's like, oh, I didn't eat that, and it was funny though because I remember like in Velvet Revolver, we all you know, watched, like we ate, you know, whatever. You watch what you eat.
No carbs. You guys weren't doing carbs because you guys were lean.
Not a lot of carbs. And we're all working out. And then I remember at a certain point, I remember seeing us like some picture of us all on stage with no shirts on. I'm like, that looks stupid. Like, I know. You know, like, the fucking Chili Peppers. Like, come on, put a shirt on. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm gonna wear a shirt from now. And then when we started touring, you know, we were like staying in all these fancy hotels, and we were, you know, making a lot of money and all this stuff. And I was like, and I love sugar. I love desserts and shit. So I
How
was
could you
like
not?
eating fucking desserts like in fancy hotels and you know, I'm like, you know what? Fuck, I'm just keep my shirt on.
So right here, but right. Would you do like one of these?
Yeah,
You
this
keep
was a compromise because I had the cutoff sleeves. This was like right after the. I'm gonna wear a shirt, but maybe I'll cut the sleeves off. And then like that other picture where I have the full like shirt on, that was like the I'm gonna eat what I want.
Right, this
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
So
See,
this is at the point in this picture. I'm eating what I want picture right there, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. It's too. How about now? Are you still? Are you now? You're like
now I got 2 kids. I'm like,
it's all down. Me too. I can't do it. I'm like I'm not what I used to look like. I'm like you know.
no, dude.
It's too hard. It's
I
too
ate
hard to me.
ice cream last night. I was like,
How does Duff? But Duff looks so good still. He keeps it going.
you know, I think just certain people are wired that way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
he has discipline.
He really is a very disciplined guy, and you know.
Yeah.
But then again, you know,
Desserts make you human. Yeah. You know what? But the treats. I mean, so you guys are doing so how so you did the first record. Everybody's getting along. There's no drama with everybody. The whole thing with Velvet Revolver.
Everyone was getting along, but there was still drama. Like, I mean, Scott from the get-go, you know, we knew Scott was kind of fucked up, and he had kind of talked about like wanting to be sober, and so we were like, okay, well, we can help you, because all 4 of us were not drinking or doing anything at the time, and we're like, all right, cool, well, we'll totally help you, you know, and so then like 2 weeks later he got arrested. You know, this was like 2 weeks after he, you know, was in the band.
Wow.
So the band was like 2 weeks old, basically. He gets arrested with drugs. Then like Duff goes to his court appearance, and it was just like right from the start, dude, like a episode of Behind the Music on VH1 for 6 years. You know, like
everything that you watch now, you're living it. But actually, now, but you're worried probably, because I would be if it was me. You know, this is the band. This could be my golden ticket. This guy's gonna screw it up for me now. It's like, oh.
Yeah, and you know, at the same time, it was like any money. I mean, the good news is, like, you know, anytime I got a check, I was like, that was my you know, my thinking. So I was like, just save it. Just put it away, you know. And I did that the whole time. You know, I was like, this could end tomorrow, you know, for a number of reasons. So
yeah.
But yeah, it was always something, you know. It's like he went to rehab, and then he came out, and then you know, we're getting ready to make a record, and then he'd disappear, and then, you know, it just was like that the whole time, to be honest. Like there was and then like this guy fell off the wagon, and then that guy fell off the wagon, and now it's that guy, and now it's this, and then it was always something.
How many years the whole bit you're dealing with this now, from the beginning to the end? Did you guys 6 years?
6 years.
So 6 years of just banging your head, like, because you're like, God.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. It was gnarly.
So they went from Axel, the old Axel, or you know, whatever, because you know, and now they got this guy who they're thinking, oh,
yeah.
I guess the best lead singers are all a little eccentric and nutty, but you know,
yeah. I mean, and you know, it was unfortunate because towards the end, it really kind of got a little more like, I think, a little bit like what. I mean, I only know stories from, you know, those guys on the bus and everything, and just from knowing those guys, as far as what GNR was like. But, you know, it was unfortunate because, like, towards the end, you know, it got very segregated, and it's like we would be, the 4 of us are on one bus, and Scott's on another bus with his assistant, and, you know, it kind of became like this mini version of what those guys were dealing with on a extremely bigger level when they were playing like stadiums and, you know, Chile or whatever. But, you know, like he would show up late and we would be pissed, and he wouldn't apologize, and he would just walk in and kind of ignore everyone. And he was so late, it'd be like 45 minutes late, and the crowd where, it was just like the same stories, dude, that I heard from those guys. It's like, but in smaller venues, and we're sitting in a venue, we're like, fuck, where is he, dude? We're calling, and the assistant's like, oh, he's in the shower, and we're like, well, what the fuck, dude, Talk about stress, dude. That guy, the assistant, whoever it was, trying to be like, dude, where you got to get him to the venue right now. And the tour manager's yelling at him. And, we're like, what the fuck? And he's like, trying to tell Scott, like, hey, and the Scott's like, oh, fucking do it. So, yeah, but it'd show up 45 minutes late, and he'd walk in with his sunglasses on and his whole, like he looked in those pictures, and he would just walk in, and because we were so late, and we would be there like listening to people booing for 20 minutes, and it was hard, you're just like, oh God. And now we have to go out and face these, I don't know, fucking 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 people that are all booing you, and again, I'm, like, I know these are just people like me and you, or like people listening, where it's like you buy your ticket 3 months in advance, and you get a babysitter, and you're like out for the night, or you call your mother-in-law to come watch your kid, and you're like, I'm going to kind of escape my life for a night. I'm going to get to see, those guys, and I love that record. And then they're fucking late, and you're like irritated, and you're standing there for fucking, so anyways, he would show up, and he'd come in, and he like wouldn't talk to anyone, and he'd just put his in-ears on, and then we'd go on stage. And then, we just grow resentful, and we're like, that motherfucker. And he would never, the show was over, talk for 5 minutes like nothing happened, and then he'd leave. And then, so it just really separated the band, which was
everybody was shutting down at some point, individually in their own way.
And that's why we started talking about firing him, and that's what eventually happened, because we were all, the four of us are on the same bus, and we're just like, man, this sucks, we can't fucking do this anymore. So,
did you guys have separate managers, like the Velvet, did he have his own manager, or it was all?
At first we didn't, we all had the same, we had two managers, and they worked under a parent manager. And then we split, and then there was a point where the one of the two managers, this woman that had been with us the whole time, we felt was a little more kind of focused on Scott, because he was just so, so much to deal with.
He needed a babysitter.
Yeah, but she would like kind of make excuses for him, and she would kind of say one thing to us and one thing to him, and she would be like, oh, I'll take care of it. And then she wouldn't say, she'd leave out information to him. And so it just felt like,
she's being a pacifier to everybody, basically.
Yeah, it just felt like it wasn't helping, at that point. And so the four of us ended up going with someone else, and then he stayed with her. So at the end we had separate managers, but not like everybody individually or anything.
Yeah. It's, you have a great singer, you have your chance, you're probably panicking. Now you're not spending any of the money at this point, huh? You're putting it away.
Yeah.
You're like not touching anything.
Totally.
It's crazy. Because that point when he went and did his solo band, a buddy of mine ended up being his bass player. And he's the one, Tom Black, who ran the Viper Room, and who managed the Viper Room. Was like one of the first people I met in LA, as a matter of fact. That's a crazy story. That I met him, but he was the whole thing just went south.
Yeah.
And I remember remember talking to Tom at the Viper Room, and I remember talking to him, and I was doing something, maybe I was doing a gig with Dizzy Reed there, with Slim Jim, and then I was like, oh man, it's cool you playing with Scott, because I just, great. I go, great. They're hard to find great frontmen out there, really hard. And then we talked about, I go, yeah, doing this. I go, and he says about Dee Dee Ramone. I go, yeah, all my eggs were in that basket. And when the gig ended, I was like in the dust. There was nothing happening anymore. And then he actually, and Dee Dee died of a heroin overdose, but Dee Dee was sober all those years. He just checked out. And you know the crazy thing is, right before Dee Dee passed away at Duff, there was something in a park, and Duff showed up there, and Duff wanted to meet Dee Dee, and I go, oh, he should be here soon, but then Dee Dee, you know, left or something. But it was like a week later he died, Dee Dee Ramone. But and I remember telling Tom, he goes, yeah, and Tom goes, yeah, Scott has his situations. I'm just hoping he gets okay, and blah 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 blah. But
Yeah.
it ended up like Dee Dee.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just
what's crazy was full circle back to Joey Castillo, the drummer, because Joey and I also played in like Danzig together. We played in a bunch of bands together, and he actually introduced me and my wife.
Oh wow!
Yeah, he's like one of my best friends, and he was playing with Scott, and at that time, because he had talked to our old manager, I think this guy Rick Canny, maybe it was Rick, I don't know who it was.
I know Rick Canny, yeah.
I think Rick was dealing with their band or somehow, I don't know, but somehow Joey, I remember Joey calling me. He's like, dude, well, you know, should I do this gig? Like, what do you think's going to happen? And I kind of said what you said, you know, like, don't put all your eggs in this basket. But, you know, I mean, the guy's fucking talented. If you're not doing anything right now, play with him, but just don't, you know, have these illusions,
high hopes,
grandeur that it could end any day. That's the truth. You know, it could just all be over in a second. He's like, all right, cool. So he started playing with him. He was actually the second guy that found him on the bus when he died, because they had a day off. They canceled the show. The tour manager said to Joey, like, let's go get something to eat. And Weiland, I mean, he did this on his own bus too in Velvet Revolver, where, you know, a lot of the tour buses, the back lounge can be converted into like a bedroom. So Scott was always in the back, you know, and then usually you get to a city, and then the tour manager comes in and wakes you up and you go into your hotel room. A lot of times Scott would just like to sleep in there. So Scott was in the bus because he was still sleeping. The tour manager was like, all right, Joey, well, let's meet in the lobby, you know, in like 10 minutes. He's like, all right, cool. And then he said, oh, I'm going to go check on Scott real quick. And then Scott, that's when he found Scott. And he called Joey, like freaking out. He's like, dude, I don't think he's, you know, he's not breathing. I don't think he's fucking, I don't know what's going on. And I remember Joey like ran down there and you know, tried to fucking do CPR, whatever, you know. And yeah, and then I remember Duff calling me that night, and he's like, dude, you know, Weiland died. And I was like, oh shit. And he's like, yeah, Joey was, and I remember I kept calling Joey, but he wasn't answering because he was, you know, he had to sit there and talk to the cops, you know, like Tommy did, and, you know, for hours. They just
that was a rough time. That was and poor Tommy, he got then he's in TMZ, his picture. And then it's like, you know, you don't know the story, you know, you don't, there's a picture of you guys together. And I mean,
giving me the sweet eyes. I'm giving it sweet eyes too, though.
Yeah. I mean, he's always, I mean, great frontman, you know what I mean? Great dresser. He had it all. He had the tone of David Bowie in his voice at times. He really just,
he was great.
He was a great front man. It's a shame. It's just a shame that that disease got the best of him.
Yeah.
And then his kids, and that's the sad part of the whole ending of the story, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
You know, and it's just a crazy story. When he was I was gonna say, when you guys fired him, did he try to say, hey, I'm okay, I could come back? Did he try to come back?
No. He actually ended up going back to SCP again. And what happened was, I think that we had heard rumblings of him meeting with, I think it was that manager that kind of set up, helped facilitate, you know, maybe them reuniting. And I remember, I mean, granted, this is all 12, 13 years ago now, 14 years ago. So some of it may be incorrect from my memory, but from what I remember, she was kind of involved in that a little bit, and then we found out though, and then we said to him like, what's up, dude? Like, and he was like, it'll be cool. It's like, I can go play with you guys, and then when we're not doing something, I'll go play with them, and then blah blah blah. And we were kind of like, well, you're barely showing up here. How are you going to show up with 2 fucking bands? And so yeah, so as soon as we fired him, he just went and did SCP.
Yeah, he did that. And then
kind
what
of
about
like we did with him, vice versa.
Yeah.
Like we found out he was done with SCP. We were like, hey, you want to come play with us? And he's like, okay.
What about singers? Did you try people out afterwards? And
yeah, we did try out a handful of guys. We had talked to Royston Langdon from Space Hog.
Space Hog, yeah.
Love that fucking guy. We recorded a couple things with him. There's this guy. God, I'm just drawing a blank.
Because he plays bass too, Royston, right? Doesn't he play bass?
Yeah. He's a killer bass player.
Yeah.
The guitar player from Big Wreck, Ian Thornley. He's the singer from. He's got an incredible voice. Sounds a lot like Chris Cornell. And that didn't quite work. But yeah, we talked to Lenny Kravitz for a second.
Really?
Yeah, it never really got that close. You know, it was more like our agent was talking, being like middlemanning, the whole thing. And
it wasn't like Slash calling him up, go, hey man, no.
It was like, hey, he seems interested. And then we're like, oh, we're interested too. And then, someone was like, oh, I don't know. And it was just like, it was like that a lot, And again, I feel like we had an easier and better variety to pick through, now that we had a name and everything, than from when we were starting, but it was just as hard.
It was just, it was just as hard starting over again.
Yeah, we wrote songs like what we knew to do, and we recorded them, and we actually, so then eventually we got this dude Frankie Perez, who we heard of through I forget the manager guy that used to manage David Lee Roth and the Black Crowes, and we met with Frankie. Oh no, we did the same thing. We had demos, we had these 5 songs, no vocals. We sent them to Frankie. We got them back, and they were fucking incredible. They were amazing. We're like, oh, this is the guy. He was in Vegas. He came down from Vegas. He sang them in the room, and he sounded like exactly like the demos. And he sang the old stuff killer. And we were like, oh, this is the guy. And then he worked with Matt and recorded some more stuff, and him and Matt just kind of butted heads. And the second round of demos weren't quite as good as the first ones. And then it just kind of slowly went like this.
Yeah.
And it was, which was fucked. And so,
Frankie's one of those guys, you'd see him all the time do those all-star jams, and all the all-stars would use Frankie in the jam. I remember. At the Vibrant all the time. He'd be the guy in town.
He's incredible, dude.
Great singer.
Really good friend of mine. He ended up moving here right by my house because he thought he had the gig. He lived in this tiny apartment, and no one was really letting him know that he didn't have the gig. And I felt so bad for him because I was kind of like I was that guy, in Velvet Revolver in the beginning. And I just called him and I said, dude, I don't think it's going to happen. I know no one's telling you, but I'm just going to fucking, tell you. Like, they didn't tell me to tell you, but I'm telling you so that you're not sitting around like hoping that's going to work out. Cause he's like, yeah, I called, I haven't heard back from anyone. I'm like,
yeah,
I just gave it to him straight. And then we kind of bonded, because of that. Cause he, and so then he and I ended up writing a lot of stuff because he would ride his bike over. I just had my first kid. I had this room, and my son would be in this little fucking thing,
Yeah.
and he'd be right there, and Frankie'd come over, and we'd write songs. It was great. So
great singer. He's great talent. I mean, that sucks. That is the business, but that is the business that once it's over, it's over, and you don't get the call. Did anybody give you any grief that you go, hey, I just told him, I had to tell him straight? Did you get any grief about that, or
not really? Because it's like everyone, there's no advantage to not telling them. They just don't want to deal with it, really.
Yeah,
I mean, no one wants to deliver bad news like that, So we, and then I think we did the same thing with Corey Taylor from Slipknot, and we actually ended up recording like 9 songs with him. But then that didn't work out. And there's always someone that's like, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And there's always a couple guys like, dude, that's a guy. And it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Look, they got the girls going over here. Look at that. The girls are in there talking. It's funny when you say, because my buddy who I got the gig to play with Dee Dee Ramone, Christian, he plays with Corey Stone Snow and now Christian Martucci. You know Christian Martucci?
Yeah, dude. When Christian was playing with Todd Youth and
Chelsea Smiles with Carl, who plays in Mike Monroe's band now.
But they were called something else right before that, because I remember that was the name they had, and Jeff Redding. Jeff
Redding. Oh, I know what they were called because they had a keyboard player that Todd Youth told me a story how they left him. He was a keyboard. He was you know who I'm talking about? This keyboard player. I forgot his name, and they were saying, "Oh, yo, kid, that guy is not." I just thought you to go, "Yo, kid."
An imitation of Ricky Mahler is the same as Todd.
It's all, yeah. Yo, kid.
Because Todd had the shady, like the
yo, kid.
You always have to look like.
Yeah. Todd was a funny guy. He go to his bass player Johnny Martin. He goes, "Yo, look at the hat today." Meaning his hair. Look at
yo, kid. You got all this
hat. Such funny stories. I mean,
but Christian and Todd had that band, and there was one song. I remember having this demo, and there was this one song that Christian sang on, and he was just so fucking. His voice was so. It was so badass. I tried to get him in Velvet Revolver because, I mean, I brought that demo into the band.
Really?
Yeah, and fucking said, this guy's awesome. And I don't remember what happened, but I really like that guy's voice.
It's funny you mentioned with Christian. So with Christian, I got him into Dee Dee's band, and he hates when I tell this story, but we were working telemarketing and all that stuff, and he was waiting at a bus stop, and an actor picked him up at the bus stop. And then the next day he calls me up. He goes, "Yeah, man." And it's like, I just got this, Christian's a lot younger than us. And he's like, this actor, he goes out with Cameron Diaz. And I'm like, what? And I go, he goes, yeah, Jared Leto. I go, dude, that guy is not going to do nothing. I go, he's an actor. I go, I'm going to get you Dee Dee Ramone, who wrote the songs. We could be in this band. I'm putting the band together. What's wrong with you? Oh, well, the next day, I'm going to quit. I'm going to tell Jared I'm not doing the band. They wanted to make him an equal member. Turn the page later, that band becomes huge. He could have been an equal member. And then Christian goes, "Yeah, man, you really did." And he was so mad.
Yeah.
But Brent Fitz, who plays now with Slash, Turns, when they were looking for the other guitar player after Bobby was out, I go, "Christian, go try out for it." And then he was trying to get that gig, and he almost got it, but he didn't get it. But it worked out because he fits best with Corey and those guys. Look at this guy. Look at this. I got this guy calling. I'm talking to you. I don't pick up to that guy. But I ended up it's a funny story how things work out for everybody.
I jammed with those guys too. 30 Seconds of Mars, because I was friends with Shannon, Jared's brother.
Oh, really?
Shannon a lot. And I remember Shannon and Jared lived in a house together, and they had a garage, and they would jam in this garage. And the bass player was this guy, Jeff. Can't remember Jeff's last name.
It was in West Hollywood, the house, right? Is that the house somewhere? That's where Christian went.
Near Highland.
Yeah, exactly.
And Melrose. And so I was hanging out with Shannon a lot. And we had this mutual friend, Paul Hughes, and all three of us would hang out. And he was telling me, like, oh, dude, I'm going to start a band with my brother. And I was like, oh, cool. And he was like, yeah, you should come jam. And I jammed with them a couple times, and it just felt weird. And his brother's, you know, he's a little weird.
Yeah. It didn't
cool, but I don't know. He's just a little, he's like hard to get to, you know, it always feels like you're being kept a little bit at arm's length. It just somehow the way he interacts, it always felt a little like,
yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't know. They weren't into me or whatever. So
it didn't work out. Yeah, I mean, Christian goes, "Oh, I don't want to tell them." I go, "It's a funny story. Tell it, Christian, how you almost had success and I ruined it for you." Good. Yeah. I like the story. It's great. I'm the Dave. You'll love being my friend. I get everybody fired. Derek Sherinian and Dream Theater. I went to see that crappy show, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" Like, oh, look at me. I go. Because I went with Eric saying, I go, where are you? I go, it's like a shadow. I go, you need to make it sexy. Go get lava lamps, and he did it. And the prog rock, and they go, what do you? And they end up getting out of bed after me. You know, I'm the idol maker. These are true stories. You know,
love that movie.
Oh, it's great. But now, okay, so now Velvet Revolver, you got this, because after Velvet Revolver, everybody's doing more like these jam bands all over the place, you know, and everybody these all-star Camp Freddy type things, and we were doing the Glam Nation thing, and you know. It's like, you know, everybody's doing the hustle because people now are paying the all-star people, all of us jamming. But you got into doing soundtracks, and I didn't know this, but now I know it. You wrote the theme song or co-wrote for Sons of Anarchy. Is this true?
Yeah.
That's big. Right here. Look at this. Look at that. You like how I did that?
Yeah, dude.
And you were in Sons of Anarchy?
Yeah, that was at Opie's wedding.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
I look like I'm asleep.
I like the picture. You like how I squeezed it in the TV?
How can he fall asleep in the middle of shooting? I was, you know, it was like that time when we were looking for a singer. We're trying to find someone, you know, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm doing okay, you know, money-wise, because I'd saved all my money. So I wasn't freaking out like, you know, how am I going to pay my rent? But I did the month after we fired Scott, I had my first kid. I had my first kid, my son, and he was super colicky, and he was crying all the time, and really difficult. And you know, I was like, what am I gonna do? You know, if I'm a hired guy, that means the only time I'm gonna make money is when I'm gone. You know, I've got this, you know, my first kid. I don't want to just be gone all the time making money. And I was like, maybe I'm going to try and be a producer or a composer. And two close friends of mine one was Josh Abraham, who produced our first record. I had known since I was 16, and or maybe I was a little older. He was a band guy that became a producer. So I called him and I'm like, how did you make the transition from band guy to producer? And then my other friend, who was my best friend since I was 11, was this guy, John O'Brien. He was a composer, but he was a band guy. And I was like, how did you make the transition from band guy to composer? And really both of them had the same advice. And they were like, you just got to commit. You got to commit mentally. You can't have one foot in, oh, I'll take that gig, or I'm open for this gig, and I'll do anything over here, but I also want to try and do this. And I remember I really kind of tried to do that. And I was really kind of leaning a little more towards the composing thing. And I was with Brian Ray and Scott again, and this guy, Bob Thiel, and we were all at Johnny Rockets again. And he said to me, we were all talking, you know, and, you know, just four musicians sitting around bullshitting, eating cheeseburgers. And he's like, you know, dude, I just got this gig as a composer and music supervisor for this show. It's called Sons of Anarchy, and we all kind of rolled our eyes like, that's a dumb name, you know, and like, and he's like, no, it's going to be cool. It's going to be like, because it hadn't started filming or anything yet. He said, it's going to be cool. It's going to be like The Sopranos meets the Hells Angels. And we're like, oh, that sounds cool. And we just started talking about music, and I was like, oh, you should get bands like Monster Magnet and Clutch, and I just started throwing out all these band names. And he's like, "Oh, that's cool." And he said, "If you ever want to write anything, you should come to my studio and let's write something." And I said, "Oh, okay." My default is to say no out of fear that I'm going to be the worst musician in the room. You know what I mean? Like, that's how my brain is wired. And I've learned over the years to just tell that to be quiet and then just take the contrary action and say, okay, and so I did. And I went over there and I had this riff that I had written with Shooter Jennings in mind, because Shooter and I were playing a little bit at the time.
Very
and
cool.
I had that riff, that main, and I brought it over and I was like, oh, I got this riff, and he was like, oh, that's cool. And then we just started writing the song, and we wrote the whole theme song that day. We wrote like it was like a 30-second or a 1-minute version. And Bob sang on it, and we wrote the lyrics together, and we just, he's like, what about this melody? I was like, oh, that's cool. And like, what if you go like here? And I played bass, I played guitar, and
Wow.
he had a little room like this, even smaller, and we just re-demoed the whole thing. And then we tried to get other people to sing on it. Like, we tried to get Shooter, and we tried to get the guy from Fuel and all these different people, and it just didn't sound right. And then Bob had this guy, Curtis Steigers, and he sang on it. And we were like, oh, this is fucking, who's the guy who ended up singing on the actual version. We're like, this is fucking killer. And that was it, dude. That's how I got my start into composing. And then we got nominated for an Emmy. And I was with CAA because of the band, and I was like, hey, I want to do this composing thing, and I just got nominated for an Emmy, and I should go off this momentum, and that's how it started.
Wow.
And then it was crazy.
I love the song. When I was looking, I'm like, oh my God, he wrote this song. So I'm like kind of fanboying out about it, because look, look, Mitch Weiss and Curtis is great. Look, they're getting all the comments here, right here.
Yeah,
People go, love Shooter. I love it. I like I like when you guys go crazy in the chat over there. But I was trying to pull up the song here to play it because I want to hear it. I had John Sebastian on the show. That's right. I get the big shots. Dave. Yeah, legend. Yeah. And he was telling me that it was over for him, basically. He was done. Guy, loving Spoonful. I mean, you think about all the hits, right? Welcome Back Carter was Cold Card, and he told the whole story and how he beat out Dion from Dion and Belmont. And his song gave the title of the TV show. But that's like forever. That song, first of all, the TV shows, it's crazy. I mean, do you ever sit back and you watch the rerun just to listen to yourself? Go, that was where were you when you came to the riff? What were you doing? Was it just noodling? How did it come up, the riff?
What happened? Shooter Jennings had come out with this record called The Wolf. That's fucking, oh, thanks, Laura. For any listeners out there, obviously you guys like music. There's Shooter Jennings, The Wolf. It's one of my favorite records. And that guy is so talented. And so on this record, the first song on the record is called This Old Wheel. And it's almost like a country rap song.
Yeah.
But it's not super country, but it's just really fucking good, man. And I really love the song. And it talks about like him and his story of coming to LA and having these big dreams of, staring up at the Capitol building and all this stuff. And it's really a fucking great song. And I just loved it. And I remember I was talking with Shooter, and I knew Drea. He was going out with Drea at the time. And I was just like, dude, I want to write some songs together. And so he and I ended up doing some acoustic things together, and here and there we were talking a lot. And I wrote that riff for him because we were talking about, we weren't really talking like, hey, let's do something. And actually I tried to get him in Velvet Revolver before.
Oh, Shooter. I remember when he was jamming with those guys.
He jammed with us at that
benefit.
Circus or whatever it's called. Circus, that place off of Santa Monica. and
I know what you're talking about. I remember he did like
in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
We played before Velvet Revolver, and I played with those guys, and Shooter sang Paradise City.
I remember that, yes.
And then I tried to get Shooter in the band a couple times, and I don't know why he said no. I've heard different versions, but
he did a great, and it's funny because you can't picture him doing that from if you listen to his music, but he did a great version of it.
Yeah.
He really did.
Awesome, dude. I mean, he can really, some of those records, like the run he did after the Wolf called Black Ribbons, there's some fucking amazing songs on there. And totally different from the record before, He did
a great job on Duff's record too. He did a great job, yeah.
Dude, and he just produced Marilyn Manson's record, and then he does, and then before that he did Brandi Carlile, and played with her, playing piano with her on the Grammys when he did that performance. And he's really a fucking prolific guy, songwriter, and really talented. So anyways, that's how that riff came to be.
Wow.
And I just kind of had it in my back pocket for a few months at the time, and then just it just seemed like it might be the right thing for.
That's it. Just something that you didn't even now it's legendary.
Yeah, I had no idea, dude. Like, you just never know, and that was for me the biggest lesson about that experience was taking the contrary action. It was really more about that than like getting, here or there, doing this or doing that. It's just like just saying yes when my brain tells me to say no out of fear. It's just like, okay, cool. Yeah. And just, bring the fucking positivity and be like, okay, cool.
Because when Velvet ended, I'm sure you went into a little like, right? When it was all like kind of.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was rough, but it's weird because it died such a slow death. I mean, we were literally looking for singers for 2 years. And so there was still a little bit of hope, like it was going to happen. And luckily that, and then I had this kid, who demanded a lot of attention. And then there was a kind of a crossover, where we were still kind of looking. And then, then the Suns thing happened. And then right after that, I did a TV show called Detroit 187 with that guy, John O'Brien, and Bob, the guy who I co-wrote the theme song with. And that's where I learned how to like be a composer, and actually was doing the underscore for the whole show. Like, and I did it together, but it was like an hour-long cop drama. So it was really, about all the moody stuff and the guy just lost his partner in a gunfight, and you gotta, make the sounds that are like, sad.
Like something like this one.
Exactly. Hey, your partner's dead. Womp, womp.
Yeah, I got like, So,
exactly.
But because you have your kid, it moved you in all different direction. Everything was meant to be. You got your kid. So you're composing now. You're doing this. This is your thing too.
Yeah.
Sons of Anarchy opened up all these doors after that. Must have opened up the doors.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. That was the catalyst for all of it, and because then this show started taking off, like none of us obviously knew that.
You didn't know it was going to be that great.
Yeah. And then Bob and I kept writing, I think I wrote like maybe a couple songs for the first season with Bob, and then,
so the songs in there, like there's like, is it Frankie got a song singing in there? Those are your tunes in there. And
yeah, well, I brought Frankie in because, he was living here. He was amazing. He, and it was because, so season 2 was when that Anvil documentary had come out. Remember that?
Of course. Yeah.
So Kurt Sutter, who created Sons, wanted to do a song with Anvil, and he had them. I don't know who came up with the idea, but they covered the Who song, Slip Kid, and they were trying to get Rob Halford to sing on it for some reason, and then they couldn't, and then they were like, and then Bob would call me and he'd be like, "Hey, dude, those guys in Metallica?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I know Robert, and And he was like, "Do you think Hetfield would sing on this?" And I'm like, "I mean, I can ask Robert if, to ask James." And that didn't happen. And then they were trying to find a singer, and I'm like, "Why don't you ask Frankie, dude? Frankie would fucking crush it." And Frankie ended up singing on it, and they ended up using his version. And from there, he met Bob, and Frankie's like the best. And so it was such a varied musical kind of palette on that show. There was kind of the kind of sound of the show, but then song wise, it kind of went in a lot of different directions. And so he would use Frankie a lot because Frankie's really can sing anything.
Let me see if I can pull up Frankie right here. Watch the talent I got here. Watch this. Let's see if we got this.
I'm ready.
If I could do this for us. I might not be able to. Is that him?
I don't know.
Is that Frankie? I don't know. I'll probably get that slips. Yeah. I'll probably get. Hold on. Let's see. I want to get to the vocals. I want people to hear it.
Yeah.
I got my clip on my textbooks. Lead me to the station. Yeah, I'm off to the Civil War.
Great voice. I mean, Frankie is a great voice.
Dude, there's a song on one of those like Songs of Anarchy. They put out these records, and there's this one, it's like this Spanish or this Mexican standard song. It's called like Los Tiempos something, and he got Frankie to sing that too, and it sounds nothing like that song you just played.
Like,
and it's all in Spanish because he's Cuban, right? I want to say Cuban, but he might be Puerto Rican. I don't want to get. It's Cuban. Yeah.
We're just two guys late at night, you and I, listen to nice music over here with our wives in the other room, just you and I locked in our man cave, me and Dave Kushner, right here, ADIKA and Kushner, alone.
Yeah.
We're getting romantic.
This is nice. I'm going to turn the lights down.
Get the lava lamps. Derek Sherinian is lava lamps. Let's get that.
No, dude, I'm not going to get fired, but I don't have anything to get fired from right now, but.
Beautiful. Good copyright show. I want to get his vocals in there. The copyright police will come after me. I mean, everybody on Spotify, there you go. All that's great stuff. I've just pulled it up. The magic of this. So now, are you working on anything current now?
Yeah, I mean, so I just kept doing shows, and people I knew and getting jobs, doing different shows. I did this show called Sullivan and Son that was on TBS.
Yeah.
What else? I don't know. I've done a bunch of shit. Movies.
Yeah, I mean, this is great.
But what happened, I mean, to where I'm at now, it's kind of there's two people that kind of changed things. When one was, so I knew Vince Vaughn when he first moved out here from Chicago, and the same guy actually that introduced me to Shooter was the same guy that introduced me to Vince. It was this guy Sean Rosigliano, old friend of mine, and later I did this show Sullivan and Son for them, Peter Billingsley, and Vince out of a production company. So I did that, and then they said, "Oh, we're gonna do this show with Bill Burr, the comedian," and which is how I know Club Soda Kenny, because Club Soda works for Bill Burr.
For Bill Burr, yeah.
So they said, "Oh, it's like an adult animated show that it's basically like All in the Family, but it takes place in the 70s and it's animated and it's on Netflix." So I ended up getting the gig to do that, and I did the music for that for 5 seasons, and it was fucking great. And then Bill and I actually ended up becoming friends because he played drums. I heard he played drums, and we had to do this cover of a Steppenwolf song. And so I'm like, dude, why don't you play drums? Like, come in the studio and fucking. He's like, ah, no, I'm no good. And I'm like, dude, come on, it's your show. You should fucking be playing drums on the show. So we did that with him, and then he and I became friends. He was like a big GNR fan growing up and played to the records with his brothers, you know. And so we just became really good friends, and you know, we did that show together, and we've done some other stuff together since then. And dude, I'll tell you the best story. He's told this story too. I'll tell you a short version. So the reason I got into my kids' school, you know, got my kids in the school because we were out of the district, was because I would do these things with Donovan, right? Playing that, like we said earlier, you know, getting the, you know, your friends to do these all-star gigs, but ours were always for the parents, right? So once a year at this school, all the parents would like get wasted, and it was in Laurel Canyon, and everyone would like, it was a mess, you know, and Donovan would put together this band, and he would ask all his friends, like, you know, Perkins from Jane's Addiction, and me, and Mark McGrath, and blah, blah. And I grew up in LA. I went to public school. So I was like, yeah, sure. It's, you know, for the art and the music program.
Yeah.
So I did it for like 3 years at this school before I had a kid. And then I had a kid, or my kid was 2, and I did it. And then everyone's like, oh, you know, that's a really good school. Like, you should try and get in that school. So then like the second or third year I did it, I talked to the principal, and I'm like, hey, I want to get my kid in the school. And he was drunk, and he was like, yeah, sure, you can. Yeah, I'll give you a permit. And so I got my kid in the school, and then eventually I got my daughter in there. And then I would put together the band, because then Donovan's daughter aged out. So then it was my job, and I did it for 10 years. And so I would get, you know, call my friends in. And so this one year, the first year I did it on my own, I had to put together this band. And I asked Bill, I was like, dude, hey, do you want to play Back in Black, you know, with Frankie? I had Frankie come and sing. And I said, you know, and he's like, yeah, okay, cool. And so he came in the day, and he rehearsed it with us. And it was Frankie, and it was the bass player from Jane's Addiction, and some other guys. Andrew Watt, the dude who's like this massive producer now, producer of the year. Andrew would come and play those gigs before he was producing. And we do this gig. So he comes up and he plays at rehearsal. He's playing with those guys. When he came up later, I had asked Duff and Slash to come up that year. And he thought that he was playing with those guys. But he comes up, it's the gig. He comes up, he gets, you know, in between songs, he gets on the drums. He's behind me. He's like, you know, ready to go. And I'm like, oh, I have a couple, you know, I have my friend Bill Burr. He's coming to play drums. And everyone's like, ah. And I said, oh, I have a couple other friends. And I bring up Duff and Slash. Dude, and he was like this. And then when I said Duff and Slash, he was like like he couldn't even look up, dude, because he was such a big fan. And all of a sudden, it was me, Frankie, Slash, and Duff, and Bill Burr playing drums.
That's great. And
dude, the whole time he didn't look up. He just was like this the whole time, and he was great. And then he looked up for a second, and he kind of fucked up, and then he looked down.
Oh, that didn't happen. Oh, he tried like, oh,
it was so rad. And then he got off stage, and he was like, dude. Then he left. He's like, oh, I got to go do a set.
He probably was like this.
Yeah. I got to do a set at the Comedy Store. I said, okay, cool. He leaves. He sends me this text. He's like, dude, I've been doing comedy for 23 years, and this is the single greatest night of my life. And he sent me this text. And so I was like, oh, and someone had sent me a video of us playing. So I texted it to him, you know, and he's backstage. So the next day he calls me, and he's like, dude, he's like, I got to tell you what happened last night. He goes, I go backstage. I'm at the Comedy Store. I'm about to go up. You send me that video. I'm telling all these guys. They're like, you didn't play with those guys. I'm like, I swear to God. And I send him the video. He's showing these guys the video. The guy reaches his head in, and he says, hey, Burr, you want to go up? He's like, no, I'm not going up. I'm not fucking, because, you know, it was like one of those guest, like 20-minute things. He wasn't on the bill, and he's like, there's no way. I'm not going up. I'm not going to ruin the greatest night of my life. So he's like, he doesn't go up. He's just watching the video, bullshitting with his friends. He gets in his car. The Comedy Store's right on Sunset Strip. You know where it is. And, you know, you have to like pull up and you're kind of like on the sidewalk and you have to look both ways to cross Sunset, and it's Sunset Strip on a Saturday night, you know, crazy traffic. And he's waiting there, and he had a Prius at the time, and he's waiting to pull out, and he's like, you know, he's just like, this is the greatest night of my life. And then there's this, you know, attractive young lady looking, you know, through the thing, like on the other side of his car, and he's waiting to pull out, and he's like thinking to himself, oh, she probably wants my autograph or something, because she's looking like this, going like looking in his car, and you know, and he's like, she probably wants my autograph. And so she starts walking to his car, and she's like ding, ding, ding on his window, and he's like rolls down the window like thinking he's gonna give her an autograph. She goes, are you Jorge, our Uber driver? And he's like, dude, it just brought me right back down to earth, and then I went home.
That's a great story. Oh my God.
So
it's awesome.
You know, we've done a bunch of stuff together, and we actually I had this idea, and we ended up writing a script together, Bill and I, that we're trying to take out to some, you know, trying to sell as a show, and so he's doing a movie right now, and so we'll see, you know, but that, and I have this partner again through the school. You know, there was a dad, he's like, dude, you should meet this guy Jose. This guy had worked at HBO. He's like, he did a bunch of shit for me at HBO. I said, all right, cool. And then we were at a barbecue. My buddy Bill was working at the NFL, and he had me do a theme song for Thursday Night Football. And so Bill's like, oh, this is Jose. Jose and I end up talking. He was doing this documentary for Amazon. He's like, I want you to play on it. I said, okay, cool. He said, why don't we do this thing together? We'll split it 50-50. I said, great. He's like, hey, you want to start a company together? I said, okay, cool, let's do it. And so 3 years ago, we partnered, and we have this company called Monkey Mind Music Group. And here's the mug. Here's the pitch.
Was that the mug? Oh, cool.
How do I do it?
Hold that up. Hold it up. Hold it. Let me make the screen big. Let me see that.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. See that?
That's nice. That looks cool.
Anyways, you can check it out on it's just monkeymindmusicgroup.com, but
I'll put a link here for people.
We ended up doing a bunch of stuff, man. We've you know, we did a bunch of stuff for Gordon Ramsay, for the show Uncharted. We did a movie for this guy Steve Byrne, comedian friend of ours that Bill Burr was in, and same through Vince Vaughn's company.
Wow. See, life after Velvet Revolver. There is life after Velvet Revolver. Yeah,
I've been really fucking lucky, and I'm just really grateful that, you know, I've had this, that I still get to play music for a living, you know, just a different capacity, and it's killer, man. And, you know, I did one of those all-star bands too, like you were talking about. I had one called the Hellcat Saints, and it was me and my buddy Scott from Weezer and Joey from Queens. And you know, unfortunately we had Chester Bennington was
another great singer.
Yeah, was the guy, and Chester and I hung out a lot, and you know, we were doing this all-star cover band. Juliette Lewis was doing it with us too, and
wow,
you know, we'd just go do gigs and you know, like corporate gigs, and make some good money playing covers and have a good time. And you know, then you know, so I still do that sometimes, you know, obviously not during COVID, but now things are starting to free up. And you know,
the COVID thing, I mean, when you think about it now, right? Because the COVID, this whole crazy heebie-jeebie. I'm not even supposed to say it; it'll ruin my channel. I don't even know what the shadow ban you, but the heebie-jeebie bill. Working in your house in your studio is like, hey, I work here. I'm safe. I'm not leaving nowhere. I don't even want to meet nobody now. You know. You know, it's like
it's weird because I built this room. So this is in my garage. We built like a nice, proper studio in the garage, a room like inside a room, and I had built it about a year and a half before COVID. So really, dude, my life was exactly the same. like I literally would get up early. I'd take my kids to school. I'd go to the gym. I'd come back here. I'd be in this room till 5 o'clock, and then I'd go out there, and then I'd eat dinner, and then watch TV. Blah blah blah. And the only difference was I didn't have to get up as early because my kids were doing online school, and we were all here, and I couldn't go to the gym. But literally everything else was the same.
The online school. Let me ask you.
Yeah.
Were you with them doing online school with the kids? Were you?
No, luckily my kids were, let's see, my daughter, who's younger, was in fifth grade. So she was old enough, and my son was in 7th. So they were old enough where they were, and my kids are great when it comes to that stuff. They're very self-reliant.
What a drag for them to live through this crap. You know what I mean? Like this. Yeah,
my daughter had to graduate, elementary school. I can't even imagine, dude, like graduating high school,
right?
Or during COVID, or like,
or being a kid trying to start a band now, because that's the whole thing, playing in front of kids. Like you play, it's all the hang, how you met this one and that one, where your career went and all that. Totally. I know it's getting late for you. We've been on a long time. You got to come back again, but before you go, and now we became
New York. I thought about that when I was at the mall, and I was like, oh, I told my wife, I'm like, I got to do that thing with the, with the guy and the she doesn't know what it is. I'm just like, well, it's this guy, and I know Club Soda Kenny and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, tonight? Like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm supposed to do it at 8. And she goes, well, can you tell him you're going to be late? And I said, okay, cool. And so I'm texting you, and I'm thinking, right after I sent the text, I was like, oh shit, he's in New York. No. And New York. And because you're so New York to me, but you're not, right?
I grew up in Brooklyn, and then
you're not currently.
No, I'm Washington now.
Okay, good, because I was like, oh shit, it's gonna be, 11:30 there, and he's gonna be up till fucking 4 a.m. Anyways, go ahead.
No, we gotta look. People like come back, like Brian. Yeah, no, you're a great guest. Yeah, no, I'm out here in Washington, and this is the first time that Dave and I met each other, and we actually made friends. So now we'll keep friends. But I gotta ask Dave before he goes, because we talked about Velvet Revolver, which you guys all want to hear all this stuff, and Dave is you're friends with everybody still in the band. Everything is kosher. Now let's put you in my list with everybody else, because I forget. Your top, what the people want to know is your top 5 vinyl albums that are what influenced you. Give me a 5 countdown.
Do I have to actually show them to you?
You don't have to show it. You could tell me 5 that are important to you.
That
if you're on a desert island, that you'd have to pick from.
James Taylor, Sweet Baby James.
Mm-hmm.
Fair Warning, Van Halen. Jimi Hendrix, Axis Bold as Love.
Oh, wow.
Black Sabbath, Paranoid. That was the first record I ever bought with my own money. And, I mean, there's so many. But also, I would say The Who, Kids Are All Right.
That's a great one. What a great album. The packaging, everything about that is great. That was my first Who album that I bought.
Dude, that documentary, like when I was 16 years old, I used to watch it just constantly.
It's so good. So good. Look at this. Look, time for Stefan to break out his pick with Eddie Van Halen. You know what? For you, honey, watch this. I should do it. Why not? Why not name drop when you can? If I sign him up, it's all your fault here, Xandra. You're lucky I can't. Where am I? The brand. Don't damage the brand. I will do it because she wanted what the people want. Now we're on the call. Show you right there. Hold on. There it is. There's Derek Shrinian, Eddie Van Halen, and Brian Tichy.
Yeah, Tichy, dude.
There he is. And I'm kissing Tichy. That's when I had my Velvet Revolver body. And then here it is. There's me with Slim Jim and Brian made a Cat Club. That's pretty. That's right. And that's right. That's a good one. And everybody out there watching, we do have a merch store. It helps the channel. Get your alligator arms, dip in your pocket. If Dice Clay's wearing my stuff, you guys better.
I love that expression. I had a friend from closeted, and he would say, I was like, what's alligator arms? He's like, oh, you know, when your arms are all little and the check comes and everyone's like, oh yeah, I'll chip in, and no one grabbed the check.
Now, you know, if I ever put a jam band together, you're going to play with me. I'm going to have you play. Look, you know, you could say, there's me with Dee Dee Ramone. There's my name dropping right there, you know. But I've done some stuff too on your show. I'll let you interview me. But you know what? Before we get out of here, I have a box. I went on Facebook the marketplace, and I bought a box of records. And I'm going to put these. Yeah. Okay, wait, hold on, everybody. He's getting in trouble, so we gotta wait. Shh. You know, Xandra was lurking. There she is. There's Xandra. Been working. Okay, I'm gonna let you get out of here in 1 second. But your wife has a podcast show too.
She did. She had a podcast with Drea Di Matteo. We'd actually do it right here.
You do that?
There's their logo right there.
What's the name of the podcast show?
Gangster Goddess Broadcast.
Oh wow!
It's like a Sopranos rewatch.
I was friends with you know what? Michael Devin.
Oh yeah.
Issues. I know him. But yeah, that's a cool thing. Now, really quick, you had some records. I'm going to let you get out of here. What were the records that give me 3 of the records that you picked out? Show the people that you had.
I got this.
He's whispering. You don't want to get in trouble. Okay.
Dude, I'm in so much trouble already.
Are you in trouble?
I got this.
Okay, you got that? All right. That's a good one. Look at that.
I got this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, dude. Steve Miller Band.
That's pretty cool.
Fair Warning.
Fair Warning. There it is.
Yeah.
Are those from when you were a kid?
Yeah, except this one is not.
Okay.
And neither is Fair Warning. I bought that with my daughter, but all the other ones are on this, dude.
Oh, let's see that. Oh, I love it. Yeah. Look, you have the hype sticker on it.
Dude, this is actually from my dad.
That's cool.
Dad gave me all these records, but he gave me all like Neil Young's Harvest and.
Okay, Dave. Here's what we got to do. Eric Singer, he's gotten into vinyl, and he wants to come on, and I do a vinyl game show, and I usually have. Do you know Joe Travis, the drummer?
No.
Okay, I usually have him. He does the Zappa stuff, and then Ed Stasium, you know him, the producer. Yeah. We host this, but then we put people against each other. The audience votes, and I want to pick a night that you could do it with Eric, and you guys take 3 of your records. You go against each other. The audience votes out of the the best 2 out of 3 win. Then you win a prize. Would you want to do that down the road?
Anytime, but I gotta go.
Okay, all right. We're gonna get you out of here. All right. All right. Until then, everybody, Dave, you were great. Thanks for being here. And we'll speak soon. That was a long conversation. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. You got it, buddy. Bye.
See you later.
All right. Dave is out, everybody. Thank you all for being here. And man, that was a lot of fun. All righty. Debbie will do it. Everybody, we're going to get out of here. But before you guys all disappear, do me a favor. There's going to be a box popping up here. I want you to click on it, okay? And until then, everybody, remember, who loves you, baby? We do. We're going to see everybody later. That was a long interview, but remember, we'll see you next week. Mwah. Bam. You're still here. You can't get rid of me. All right. Now get the hell out of here, you crazy kids. But make sure you click on that. I'll see you later.